everyone! So today I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap-up, I believe. And today I was gonna wear glasses because I pierced my face and I have to wear these band-aids all the time. I can't wear makeup because, infection and stuff. My cheeks are reacting to the band-aids and they're super red and itchy, so I guess my life is just an unfortunate situation. Yeah, I'll take the glasses off actually. And so you guys can see me in all my natural beauty. And my videos are going to be like this for the next couple of weeks because I have to. And you guys get to see me in my everyday life with my Adventure Time t-shirt, my ears as I am naturally presented in my natural habitat when you find me in the environment of my house. So let's get started. So the first book I finished in March was Batman by Marie Lu. I read it because I really liked Warcross by her. These DC stories are kind of like the original stories of the DC superheroes, and this one follows Bruce Wayne, of course, in Gotham City, and he lives with his butler Alfred and all that, so the original story is still the same, and you get to follow as some crime happens in the city. I didn't really enjoy this book because I felt like Batman never actually happened. I was waiting for him to, put on the Batman mask and become the superhero, and yes, he saves the day, but never as Batman. And I understand this story could be the beginning of a Batman story or his origin story, this is how he became Batman. But I wish he would have actually become Batman. In the end, he didn't really, and I was sort of disappointed at that. I wish there was more superhero stuff, but I really like the girl villain in the story. I thought it was a very average book. I don't really recommend it. It wasn't bad. After that, I read Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So I have a book review for this up if you want to know more about my in-depth thoughts in this book. It takes place in a fantasy world inspired by Africa, and then there's these people who have silver hair and are magi and have all these power, and then there are people with no powers. And currently there's this king that are suppressing all the magi and they're treated like slaves, and Celia is a magi, but none of the magi currently have any power because it was taken away from them. And so this is Celia's kind of quest to finding justice for her people and getting magic back. I really enjoyed the story. I think it's very rich in plot. I felt like the messages in this book were very strong. There is some very hardcore slaughter and human injustice scenes that was a little bit difficult for me actually. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was a good YA book. It has all this adventure stuff. It has the prophecy, the chosen one, all that fun stuff that we all love in young adult fantasy. But I felt like it was a little bit lackluster in the fact that the characters, I didn't think they were that in depth, and I also thought that the African culture was kind of lacking when it came to food, clothing, and traditions and that. But I would recommend it as a fantasy book if you like young adult fantasy. Next, I read The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a novella spiraling off from the Kingkiller Chronicles. So the first one is The Name of the Wind. And this story is only about Ari, which is one of the characters in the book. I think she must be my favorite character, except the main character. She is the kindest, sweetest, understanding person of the world. I wish I could be like her. And so she lives in underground. She calls it the under thing. There's all the tunnels and the water closets and everything down below the earth. And this is only a book about her life and what she does, and she basically dedicates a lot of her time finding a place for things in the world that aren't placed where they should be or don't feel at home. And so she listens to objects as if they're real, and she understands them as if they have feelings. And I love that so much. If you think about the grand aspect of the series, she knows the name of things, in the magical sense if you read the books. But she's also so clever and compassionate, and I want to be like her, honestly. I wish I had her traits, and this is a story about her ups and downs. She's like the purest soul ever, and I highly recommend this book if you read the Kingkiller Chronicles. If you haven't, then I probably would start with those books before this one, because you probably won't get a lot of the stuff. I highly recommend this novella. After that, I read a sci-fi called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is an adult sci-fi and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. This is about Jason Dessen, who all of a sudden gets kidnapped and he gets teleportized into another world where everything is the same, but in this world he's accused of being like a scientist and he's come back to them and what were his results and everything. But what really happened is that a Dessen in another reality has swapped his life for the main character, Jason Dessen. And so this book is all about alternate dimensions and how every decision that's ever made creates an alternate dimension. That's the plot of the book. And so the Jason Dessen that is our main character, he has to find his way back to his wife and his kids that he loves, and along the way he goes into all these other alternate dimensions or realities, and he gets to experience all these things. So he learns about, an alternate dimension where he was a scientist, or he pursued his dreams, chose the career over the family, and so now he gets to reflect on what's really important to him. Did I make the right choice? So it's really about like second chances in life, like what would have happened if you would have taken another route, and how you should be grateful for what you have. And I love this book so much. It had a bit of humor in it. I thought it was really funny, and I also really liked the main character. I liked the plot. I thought it was amazing. I liked the concept. There's so many good quotes in here, so many good concepts. I love books about alternate realities or dimensions. I think that's so cool because I totally believe in it, and I just really, really love this book. This is a great adult science fiction, and I highly recommend it. After that, I read Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. This is an epic fantasy about it's kind of about pirates and traders that live on ships and along the coast in this world, and the ships or the certain kind of wood can quicken or become alive, and they can, talk, and they have a personality. Many of the ships in this book are ships that can talk and have personality and that kind of thing, and that's sort of how the magic works. For this one, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of drama within the families. You follow one trader family, a family that kind of trades things, obviously, and they have a live ship, and then you follow pirates that want a live ship. There's a woman who's written this book, but it has a lot of sexism. Like, the way the women are treated in this book are just awful. There's so many things that made me so fucking aggravated. There's some very, very pure characters, some of the best characters I've ever written in books here, and some of them most disgusting I've ever read about in any other book ever. I just felt like the characters, some of them were just I just want to be I was so disgusted by some of them. Nonetheless, though, I think this was extremely well written, and this is kind of how a fantasy is supposed to be written. But it was a lot of drama, very slow, and I felt like the main characters that I really, really liked, they deserved so much more than they got. They just got knocked down, and they never rose to the top. You think they were oh, it's gonna get better now because blah blah blah, but they were just knocked down, and they just got shit after shit after shit, and it just became worse and worse for them. And I was like, come on, these are supposed to be our heroines, and they're just ruining everything. I had a lot. It made me feel a lot, but I felt so wronged by this book. And I don't know if I would continue with the series, but the series definitely ended in a way that makes me want to continue, because you got to explore more of the magics at the end, or you got a peek of it. And now I kind of want to read it, but at the same time, 800 pages of people's mystery is just not my thing. It made me very depressed. But it's definitely a well-written book if you're interested in politics and drama and complex fantasy plots. After that, I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I read Strange the Dreamer by her, and I loved it, and so I have to read her other series. This book is about Karu, who lives in Prague, and she's a little bit special because you get to learn in the beginning she has blue hair growing out of her head, and she has these beads that she can make wishes out of, and you get to learn that she is an orphan grown up with these magical people that live behind these magical doors that are placed all around the world. And Karu basically works for this orphan family of hers to deliver messages and be a pickup truck or whatever. You get to follow her as she picks up teeth for her orphan father, I guess you could say, but she doesn't know why or why that's happening. And so you get to follow her as she meets this gorgeous like angel kind of, and you get to learn about the magic behind where she comes from. And I loved this book. What I didn't know about this book before I started is that it's basically like a love story. It's basically a love story with a fantasy environment or like surroundings, and I loved it so much. It was so addicting kind of in a way, like I just wanted to read more and more and more. And I thought like the plot was amazing. I did not see any of it coming. It was so great, and I thought the magic was great. You don't really understand all of it, of course. And there's also like Chimera in here, so half animal, half something else. She was such a kick-ass character. She goes to art school in Prague, and she has blue hair, which is like me. Like, I mean, the first color I ever colored my hair was blue, and it was like blue and long, you know? I just related to her so much, but I mean, she's much more like kick-ass and honest than I am, but she was just, I loved her so much, and I highly recommend this book in the series. After that, I read Sight Witch by Susan Dennard. This is also like kind of a novella or prequel, do you say that? Prequel to, I don't know what they call it, Truth Witch series. I read Truth Witch and Wind Witch, and this one takes place before those books. This is about like a sight witch convent, so these sisters kind of learn to get the sight, and then they're called into this mountain, and they will kind of like, their sight will awaken. And so the main character, she's been at this convent for a very, very long time. She hasn't been called in, and she's very destroyed by that. It breaks her heart kind of, and she sees her best friend go in one day, and after that all the other of her sisters are also called into the mountain, but when they usually come out, they stop coming out, and so at one point she's left alone, and all of her Sight Witch sisters are trapped inside the mountain, and she kind of goes on a journey to get them out or save them. And I really, really love this book. You got to explore more about the like Sight Witch, the world, the Witchlands, and some of the magic possible and some of the history behind the magic, why there are all these different witches. I really enjoyed that. I'm so excited to continue with the series now after I read this, and it also has many different formats, so it has like letters, and it's written in diary form also from now, and the original Sight Witch long ago. There's also illustrations in here, maps and pictures, which I really, really enjoyed. I thought this was such a good book. It was such a good like novella. I just loved it, and I highly recommend it if you read the Witchlands series, and I think maybe you could read this one before even. So the only thing I don't like about this book is the fact that the pages are like, they're like cut unevenly, which I think aesthetically is really cool, but it's such annoying, like it's so annoying when you're supposed to like flip through the pages, and the book is kind of written like this if you wanted to see inside. And lastly, I read Saga Volume 5. This is a science fiction comic. I have all the comics at home, and I wish I kind of just read them quicker instead of like savoring them like I'm doing now, because I am finding myself like forgetting how some of the characters like met each other, which is like my fault and not the actual comic, because I think the actual comic is very, very well done. This one was of course brilliant like the other comics and in the series, and I definitely recommended these comics. They're so great. I love them. So that was all the books that I read in March I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're disappointed that I didn't read all the books that my mom was gonna make me read, to say the least, I'm disappointed as well. I didn't read all the books because there was new books that are being released that I really want to read in the moment. I messed up on the classic and I really didn't want to read Austen classic. My fault completely. And so some of the books were different. I still read 4 of the 7 books that my mom chose for me, which is not that bad. Honestly, not that great, but I think still it was a fun video to do. My mom says hi. She couldn't be here today because she has work, but my mom says hi. She didn't read any of these books with me. I made her buy Daughter of Smoke and Bone. She will read that. And she's probably gonna read The Strange Regard of Silent Things at some point too, because she's read the 2 other books, the King Killer Chronicles as well. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for watching. So comment below what book you're currently reading or a great book that you've read last month. And I will see you guys soon. Have a lovely day. Mwah.